Hey,
Hey, there you are.
how's it going, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. It's been a long time.
It has. And just to give you a heads up, we're just live streaming right into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
sounds good.
just because yeah, like it's just what I'm doing. And I have this theory that eventually, agents are just going to be crawling the text out of these things and learning what they can, or just micro slicing videos and not watching long form content. But either way, I'm just having fun with this. And Anthony, thank you for joining me, and thank you for sponsoring Agent to Agents hackathon. That was a incredible event where we pushed some talent to really start at the bleeding edge of where this tech is going. So I'm doing from the winners of the hackathon. I've already had a couple of live streams with them, but I also want to bring on the sponsors so that we can hear more about your stories, not only just the developers, but people building the tooling and infrastructure to enable this emerging world. So for those that don't know, this is Anthony Isaacson, and he is the founder of FXN, where agents don't just think, they compete, trade, evolve in real time, designed for builders, traders, and innovators. I'm just going by your website. You'll probably do a better job than me, Anthony, describing yourself and your company. So why don't you go ahead and just jump into that, and then let everybody know about you and your company.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Also, thank you for the heads up on letting me know that we're live. um, yeah, so I'm founder of FXN. The actual company name behind FXN is called Oz Networks. So we basically build like communication infrastructure and like payment infrastructure for either people or now agents to exchange data, resources, and like track each other's reputation. So you're make sure you're dealing with good actors. So that's basically what we do. So my background is all in cybersecurity. So we kind of got started with like cybersecurity data sharing.
Cool.
We're now kind of branching out to this brave new world of AI, and it's very fun, very fast. Things change at an insane pace.
Yeah,
So just trying to keep up and continue to provide useful stuff.
that's cool. And I actually worked in cybersecurity for a little bit. And have you ever heard of Arctic Wolf Networks?
I have not.
Okay.
What did you guys do?
They were a Silicon Valley startup. They became a unicorn, and they had their engineering office in Waterloo. A lot
Oh,
of tech companies will come here for the engineers, um, and I think I was their first UX hire at that time.
oh,
And
no
then
way.
I would monitor what the security analysts do all day and try to make their experience faster.
Yep.
Um, so they had like a human in the loop system where dental offices, lawyers who couldn't afford a full security team could outsource that and just get Arctic Wolf Networks. So I got to know a lot about the security industry, right down to raw logs. At that time, I'm like, what is that? You
Yep.
you probably know all about that, but had a lot of fun realizing how much of like detectives they are to see data moving through networks, what's internally moving off or on. How did that lead into this pivot? So security background, how does that lead into where you are now with FXN?
So if you've worked in cybersecurity, you know pretty well like the way that like events are generated, right? And so it's like a machine connects to some IP address, and then there's like some intelligence database behind the scenes that's like, oh, that IP address is like bad, or like that particular way of interacting with that IP address is bad. So like that intelligence is kind of like that's like the core of cybersecurity,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Is it
What
coming
what
from
is
North
this?
Korea? Yeah,
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 yeah. Well, what is this thing, or like what is this interaction?
yeah,
So the whole idea behind Oz was like, how can we make people like from like anywhere in the world contribute to like a shared database of that information, and try to like drive the cost down, because the cost for like really good threat intel is like pretty insane. So that was kind of like how we got started. But I mean, we kind of moved in a more everything direction as
yeah.
opposed to just cybersecurity data.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess there's just so much opportunity once you understand from the raw log, or that everything is a data exhaust of something else. It's just
Yeah.
Where are the opportunities in all of that exhaust? So that's quite smart that you'd be able to see that pattern and then bridge off this way. So what was it then that you discovered? So there's just general AI and machine learning, which I remember at Arctic Wolf Networks also generating sort of like this idea that when does it make sense for a human to look at the data versus what can you just automate? Like if a dentist office in this jurisdiction goes home every day at 5, after that create alerts where there should be no data moving in and off servers and things like that. But how did you get to then see this opportunity with agents? What was it? Was it AI or ML that led to then agents, or was it straight into agents?
Um, so the agent story actually doesn't have much to do with like the cybersecurity
Okay.
side.
Oh,
So the
okay.
cybersecurity side, actually, the data was going to come from people, from like threat intelligence
Okay.
researchers. Like you can't really reliably automate the creation of threat intel. Like there's still like really smart hackers out there who
Yeah.
are like finding out how systems work in ways that they should not work.
Yeah.
And like language models really only look at like a lot of examples and then learn the way that things like do work. So like language models are not
Oh.
hackers. Hackers like think like a different way. They think separate from like the corpus of research, right? So it's actually super different. But the protocol that we use, it basically lets these like hackers like place their data in like some like shared like repository and then like basically get compensated when that data is accessed. So
Okay.
that's what we built.
Okay.
So the model there is like from hacker to like cybersecurity customer. But the same protocol works when the provider is an agent and the buyer is an agent. So what we actually build is the protocol. So
Gotcha.
it's like it's this very generic thing that you can communicate and share like anything over. And that's kind of how we like transitioned over here. Because ultimately, like people don't really care much about security at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
market for security is pretty much like big businesses.
Yeah.
So like as much as like people complain about like there being too many like data breaches, too many like vulnerabilities, too many scammers, no one wants to pay even $1
Not
to get
until it happens.
protected.
Then it's like, oh, how do we
Yeah,
stop that from happening again? But yeah, it's
yeah.
always too late.
The only thing that drives cybersecurity purchases is compliance. So it's like you're
Ah.
gonna like lose a license or get like a huge fine if you don't buy a product. So it's kind of like a negative stimulus to purchase as opposed to being like, oh, I actually don't want to get hacked. Like no one thinks that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, okay, so then pivoting away from cybersecurity, but I'm always curious about people's backgrounds and how
Yeah.
they found their ways to where they are today. Um, so what are you excited about now then in this new emerging space? What customers are you excited about working with, or who are your partners, and what's going on in that pivot world now for you?
Yeah. So one of the challenges that we've been having is like we had to kind of define our own standard between like the way that the agents should communicate with each other. So that was kind of like, as a small player, it's really hard to be the guy defining a standard. So
Yeah.
something that came out like pretty recently is like MCP. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like the Model Context Protocol.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
basically defines exactly how these things should communicate with each other. So it's very exciting to see like adoption of a standard between. It's actually exactly like what we're doing. It's the standard we needed. So it just came out, and we're now like adopting it throughout like our tech stack. So it's super exciting to see this thing come out, and then like basically the players didn't exist to some extent before.
Yeah.
So and we were enabling these players to communicate, but then there weren't any. But now suddenly, like with the advent of like this protocol, suddenly there's like a ton of players coming into the scene,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're basically going to let people like share their servers or share their clients with each other. So like this is actually like huge news for us. So we're currently like adopting the standard in our tech stack, and I'm pretty excited to get it going.
Very, very cool. And this was from Anthropic, right? They were the first ones
Yeah.
that dropped this model context protocol. For those that may want a better idea, because I keep seeing on X, some people know what it is, a lot of people don't know what it is. Do you have another way to describe it in a general layman's terms so that somebody else could figure out what we're talking about here?
Yeah, it's a toolbox for LLMs. That's
Okay.
that's it. So if you want your LLM to be able to like take an action, it needs a tool to take that action. Otherwise, you're just talking to it. So it's kind of like I want an LLM to create a file in Google Drive for me. A tool from MCP would let the LLM do that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's like a lot like OpenAI's like function calling idea,
Okay.
except it's like standardized. Um, so
Very
you host
cool.
these things as servers, and what we let people do is like share those servers with each other. So that's kind of how we like fit into that whole thing.
Nice. And how are you seeing early adoption, or who do you expect to be the earliest adopters of this type of new tech?
Ourselves. So we started by building infrastructure,
Cool.
like way back in the day. So we've had this protocol live for like almost a year. Yeah, about a year now. And what I've realized is that like when it comes to building infrastructure, there's very few users for it. So
Mm.
we started like basically going right to the end, and we're building a product that uses our own infrastructure.
Oh, cool.
So we're going to be the ones who use this.
That's cool. That's cool.
So yeah, we're building an application that basically makes it very, very easy to create these MCP servers and like get use of it in like your daily life. So people shouldn't need to know that like MCP exists. They shouldn't need
Yeah.
to know this tech stuff. They're just like they can just tell the AI to do something for them. That we're building an app for that like
Oh,
wraps all of
very
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I haven't gotten to do a deep dive on the model context protocol, but I did write a book about contextual intelligence. So I was latching onto this idea about the value of context from Jeff Jonas many years ago, who was a chief data scientist at IBM before, and also in cybersecurity. Data scientist, but heavily came up with a very intelligent algorithm that IBM bought. And we got to talking about it when I interviewed him for my book, and this idea that I seen a video of him talking about puzzle pieces, and I love this very simple to understand metaphor that when you start a puzzle and you don't actually know its boundary edges yet, you look for the pieces that have this flat edges, and that helps you shape its boundary space. And then you go through other whatever the picture is and sort of fill it in. But at some point, when you have more context around the thing that you're trying to build, you speed up as you go in. So he was saying that that's kind of how he built his algorithm when he was looking for threat intel in casinos to solve entity resolution problems. He ended up building context models around entities so that he could distinguish between two things that might be duplicates or not. And very, very, very smart man. So context is super important. Well, where I started to realize if I just had more context around the things I'm interested in, I can learn faster. So I just started using it as a hack to learn quicker. But now I see the model context protocol coming out, and I've been starting to see how these patterns are just being used in new computational systems. So I'm excited about to dig into it deeper. I haven't gone down the MCP rabbit hole too far yet, but what you just described to me makes sense from a customer interview I was doing last week, where I'm making something and then the output could be just a PDF, and they said, well, I would rather just it show up in my Google Drive. And right, that's an action that they have to go perform, that they're like, well, can't you just drop it in my Google Drive? And it sounds like MCP or model context protocols might help us do very creative new micro actions and things of this nature. I'm going to read more about that, but let's sort of like dig into FXN a little bit more, because I think, is it just you, or you have I think you have other is another founder, or no?
There's a total of 3 of us.
Oh, there's 3 of you. Okay. And what would you like people to know more about FXN?
Let's see. I mean, I would say that we're kind of like explorers of this space. Like we started out with like the swarm angle, basically
Yeah.
agent communication,
Yeah.
and I want to say like we're kind of folks who are like assembling these tools like as they're coming out.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
we're kind of like at the frontier of it. So yeah, I want to say just like stay tuned for what's like coming out
Okay.
next, because it's
Okay.
gonna really wrap everything up. Um, when I got into crypto like a year and a half ago, like infrastructure was kind of like all the hype. So
Yeah.
like naturally, like the first thing I wanted to try out was infrastructure, but it's really hard to like make anything that like actually affects people's lives
Mm.
by just making infrastructure. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's almost like handing someone like a bucket of sand and being like, "Here,
Yeah.
like go make yourself a house."
Totally.
It's like, but like now I don't have shelter. You know, I have a bucket of sand. So I think I think what we're gonna basically do with in the next like month or so is basically assemble all of this stuff in a way that like anyone with no tech background can really make some like powerful automations
Oh,
come out of it.
cool.
So yeah,
Cool.
I'm excited about the future, but we're still very much like under the radar in dev mode for now. So
Cool.
yeah, I don't
Cool.
want to say too much.
Okay, cool. That's exciting. I can't wait to see what you guys are doing next because you are early. And I remember when I was thinking about running the hackathon, there was only a handful of people on X, not even a handful. There was a few. Bushi, and then I know Patrick from Masumi from the Cardano network. And so there's only a handful of people that were starting to see this paradigm shift, and I'm still like catching up where I'm like, I think it's a big deal, but I can't quite tell if it's just me being crazy. But so you've been in crypto for a year. I've been in it for too long. But I was realizing there's interoperability challenges, not only in the IoT space, because that's what I was into before crypto. It was like I was fascinated about connected objects being able to communicate, and how is that going to make my life any better at home, wherever. Um, and then I realized, well, there's all kinds of interoperability problems there. Like Google's not going to share their data with some other provider of the other object in the house. So this promise of I think it was at that time, $50 billion industry never came to fruition because data has this challenge of having a relationship with other data. So the agent thing took off, and I was like, well, it didn't even take off. When I was seeing the early signals, I was thinking, hey, that might be a bridge for outside of crypto, because I knew in smart contracts we were doing that within a walled garden, like if you're in a chain. But all of a sudden, I was thinking about agents as being a bridge beyond that to connect interoperability. Have you ever thought about agents in that context at all, or in that
Yeah,
way?
that's like exactly how I'm thinking about it too.
Okay.
Like, you know how like the giants in tech right now, like the moat that they have is like these closed
Yeah.
ecosystems, right?
Yeah.
Like like Apple has like easy like integration like vertically within like their own stack. Google has easy integration within their own stack.
Uh-huh.
I think what people really want is to interact with like all of their digital tools like
Whatever
easily,
they are.
right? They don't care if they're like they have like an iPhone and they're like using like
Exactly.
G Suite, you know?
Yeah.
Like they want those things to be like seamlessly integrated.
Yeah.
But the companies like with those moats, they like want to preserve their moat,
Of
right?
course. Of course.
And I really think AI is going to like break down
Me too.
those moats
Yeah.
to the point where you have one access point
Uh-huh.
into like the digital world, which
Yeah.
is just like whatever you're talking to,
Yeah.
and it knows how to navigate it.
Yeah. Your self-sovereign identity.
Well, yeah,
Not
yeah,
even
very
in
well.
one chain either, right? We were working on that years ago, and then I was still curious. I was like, okay, well, we build it in the Cardano network, but I have relationships with people in Ethereum's network and other networks. So does that mean my identity is usable everywhere when I go to the bank too? So I can't help but think that at some point I have a digital twin agent that is my own, and it's not connected to anybody else's infrastructure. Well, not, yeah, it doesn't get locked into other people's infrastructure. It's almost like it can port anywhere and help me sort of do handshakes with different ecosystems. Anyways, that's a bit of a ramble.
Well, no, so it's just like another layer of abstraction, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you have this like single thing that like maintains context across the entire stack that you have. So like every account that you have, every chain you have, every wallet you have, there's like one set of shared context across that entire stack.
Yeah.
So like it knows my messages that I have with like privately, like with
Yeah.
my wife,
Yeah.
with my coworkers, with my community,
Yeah.
and it can pull context from any of those places and deliver it anywhere.
Yeah.
So it can deliver it into Telegram. It can deliver it into my email. It can write articles for me. It can write tweets for me
And
because it knows like everything that like I know.
yeah, it knows what you want to be private as well. So do you think that and maybe you're already well into it, but is that what zero knowledge proofs do in that context? Is like,
I don't know the utility of
okay,
zero-knowledge.
me neither. So I'm trying to figure out. I hear people throwing it around, but I hear that and T's, trusted execution environments, or there's, and I don't know it well enough, but my assumption is that they're little containers, and there's some ability to constrain people or constrain what data you want to reveal and what you want to be public and what you don't, because our private data still ends up in all these servers. So this idea.
So my thought with this is the architecture that makes the most sense is actually like people have their own like private like on-prem instance that's running the model and that preserves all of this memory like on site. So it's like in my house.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think NVIDIA released this device that's like a powerful GPU that like sits on in like a single like box basically.
Yeah.
You can run like a model there. And I think what makes the most sense is to also store all of the data there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want this data to exist in anyone else's box anywhere else.
No.
And you don't want to be delivering it to like an open model because you know that they're training their models on your data.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So depending on like the level of privacy that you want with the type of information that it is, it's probably just safest to hold it all yourself.
Yeah. 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 Very cool. Very interesting times. Fast approaching. So the hackathon.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, it was super aggressive, and I think it was. I was going to do it in 10 hours, and then people are like, "No, you're crazy. What are you doing, man?" So we switched it to 24 hours, and I wasn't sure who was going to come out of the woodwork to sort of play. But I'm going to just do a quick screen share just so people can see what we're talking about.
Sure.
And you came along because you were crazy enough to jump on the journey. I had a ton of fun. We had 3 top teams come in, and the first one used FXN, the AI OSS maintainer, or autonomous open source maintenance. From what I got or what I understood about this one was it was kind of cool where if you have an open source project and it's like hard to have people stick around, there's no incentive always, as sort of maybe the novelty wears off and people leave or whatever, but they came up with this idea of, well, maybe you could have agents sort of in a marketplace that hire a security audit of your open source project or something like this. Did you get to look into this one much, or any of the other projects?
Yeah, I watched the videos of this.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I watched the whole stream actually. I was there for it. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. To see what comes together in 24 hours is always fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I was like, half of this team, I know Jeff knew Web3. I don't think any of the other of those guys had any experience in Web3. I didn't realize that till I kicked off the hackathon, because I've just been in the trenches for so long. Like 2017, I ran co-founded ETH Waterloo with Liam Horn, world's largest Ethereum hackathon, but it was in 2017. So we're in 2025. My assumption is like, okay, at least people, at least some engineers and stuff have experience with it. Turns out a lot of people are still have never used a wallet, and it's totally understandable. I'm not knocking anybody for not knowing fucking Web3, but I'm just saying I underestimated the fact that people have to have a learning curve to get into what a wallet is, and because I remember. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's something about like the mystique of crypto that is like it repels a lot of people from treating it as though it's like normal technology.
Yeah.
Like the culture that we've built around it, like makes like normal people who are like very smart, very technical. They're like, oh yeah, I'm not touching that.
Yeah,
Like,
you guys are crazy. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then you get into it and you're like, oh, this is just like normal APIs. It's just normal function calls. These are just like npm repositories. I'll just install it and then call the functions. Like there's nothing complicated here. But
Yeah.
then like the culture makes it like like less like accepting, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And I've seen that pattern in many places in banking and insurance. I worked at an insurance company once. Same deal. They come up with their own language and lingo in all the meetings. So if you're senior, you're like, the junior's not going to get it. And then they create this culture around language to exclude and keep people in tiers of understanding.
Yeah.
And that annoyed me. I remember, especially in insurance, I had to. I caught myself like in every meeting going, what is that? What does that mean? What does that mean? And I just felt dumb, right? And I'm just like, and then somebody was cool enough to go, hey, like there's actually a book for all of our acronyms. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They're like, no, there's like a PDF and it's pages long. And I'm like, holy shit. And sure enough, yeah, you go into a meeting, you're trying to figure out all this insurance lingo. It's freaking pages long. So I think, yeah, you're right. Culture, and they come up with this sort of mystique, as you put it, to try and make it something complex or cool when it's like
Yeah, and honestly,
infrastructure.
crypto Twitter is probably the worst because if you don't know like years of history, like everyone's like always subtweeting each other, and you're like, what the hell are they talking about? Like, who is this guy? And it's like some event that happened like 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And like if you don't know what that event was, it's like 4 tiers of like changes on the same thing. So it's like a tweak on a tweak on a tweak of an event,
Yeah. Talk about
and
an
you're just
echo
like so
chamber.
lost.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I understand them all now.
yeah.
Which means that like I'm like too far gone basically. But like for new people, I can see why it's really hard to get into this
Well,
and
I
just
think, yeah,
understand what's going on.
you're right. I think it's a massive echo chamber, and I think it breaks with AI because it tried to hold this hype of being the next big thing. But I've been through many hype cycles in tech. So before that, IoT was just all the rage. I ran conferences around that, ambient intelligence, some other stuff, and I was excited. I was like, oh my god, like this is going to be cool. I will no longer have to have these things hijack my attention all the time if I'm talking to smart objects. I timed this. Do you have a hard stop?
No.
Okay, cool. Then we'll go a little bit over. And oh, I lost my train of thought because my timer went off. But yeah, so the echo chamber, I think it dies off. This is just my guess. I don't really know. But AI's, well, it already has taken a lot of the hype, and it's a good thing for Web3 or crypto to sort of be what it needs to be. Is if it's an architectural stack, kind of like Visa and MasterCard, nobody gives a shit how it works, just does it work, right? The general consumer
Yeah.
wants to know, does it get the job done, right? So I'm kind of happy that the AI hype train came, and it's like, all right, it's kind of cool that way.
I,
Um,
I think there's still going to be like information that people are like uncomfortable like writing down. Like there's still things that like people will tell each other in like DMs or like in private conversations, that they won't put on like the public timeline, that won't get scraped, that won't get learned, that won't become part of like this corpus of knowledge you can access by just chatting with it. Um, I think it's just going to push it like further and further out though.
what do you mean by that? Further out?
Um, I was I was on Twitter this morning, so um, there was a thing about basically doing due diligence about like who's investing in you, because it's really hard to control who holds or who like dumps the token like
Yeah,
once they receive their allocation.
yeah.
So like there's certain VCs who are like well known to be like dumpers, like bad actor investors basically, but you don't like name and shame because you don't want to ruin the relationship.
Uh huh.
Or there's this like annoying thing called like lawsuits in the US where if you like slander people, well, not even slander, like you just like tell the truth about them, they'll like come after you legally. And like everyone's too afraid of like the headache involved, to like even think it's like worth it to like reveal the truth about these investors, or about these like co-founders or this kind of thing.
Yeah,
So like in private conversations, I might tell you one on one, like, "Hey, avoid this guy. He did this."
yeah.
But like I'm not going to tweet that out. It's never going to get learned by
Yeah.
anyone. So
Yeah.
there's still going to be this like knowledge that exists in like whispers, you know?
Well, 100%, or even, or you mean just not accessed by LLMs?
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
you,
There's always a subculture. It's just like, how far down is it? You know?
oh, interesting. And that's what you mean by that edge.
Yeah.
You know what? Also, I found fascinating is that 80% of the world's data is behind servers. It's not public.
Yeah. But it's all cybersecurity logs and that kind of crap, you
Oh,
know?
well,
You know what I mean? Like you worked in cybersecurity,
yeah,
so you
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I mean. Like
yeah.
these companies are maintaining like hundreds of terabytes of crap from like
But it's business
2014.
intel. Like there's like imagine
Right.
all of the business intel, all of the documents, right? That's living on Microsoft or Google and Amazon servers,
True.
which I wouldn't really want to have it on anybody else's servers. But right, it's just kind of like that stuff's not getting accessed. It will get accessed by LLMs, but this idea that a lot of the business intelligence is certainly not been scraped by closed AI.
Right.
When that ChatGPT moment hit, I was blown away. Of course, like everybody else, I was like, this is really really cool. I can finally talk to a computer. I've been waiting for that forever. But I realized as soon as it's like, yeah, well, I can't answer a question beyond this date, and then you realize this general knowledge is good, but it's got its limitations. And I kind of like that discovery of realizing there's still more. There will always be more to discover.
Yeah.
I really didn't like the idea that, oh my God, closed AI is just sort of like scrape the entire internet. They've got it all. And then you realize, well, no, the company I work for, their information's not public, and not to mention hundreds of other companies. So I really like that idea about, how do you generate real business value with these new tools? Is that also part of what you're doing with your protocol sort of and future ambitions, is working with what's your ideal customer
No, this
in the
is like
future?
exactly what we're trying to do actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a GPT for like your life.
Oh, nice.
So like it just knows like about all of like your data, not necessarily all this like public data. It's not
Yeah.
about coding at all. It's more just like help me like automate like what I care about
Cool.
based on like what you know about me. And that's kind of what we're trying to build in this application.
Very cool.
Trying to take it way, way, way away from the like tech details and
Very
just make
cool.
like make something that just works kind of thing.
Very cool. Well, we'll connect offline on that because
Yeah.
I'm very curious about that and for an application in particular, a learning and development tool. I've mentioned in my book as well. And when I became a manager at an engineering company for product designers, um, there was no manual for me to become a manager. I had no way to measure if I was doing any good. So
Right.
I wanted to use tools to help me learn how to develop as a leader. So I read books, of course, and I had this really really smart coach out of Vancouver. He said, "Ian, you just got to read this one book called Multipliers, and you don't even actually have to read the whole book. Read one chapter called Diminishing Behavior." So I did, and I realized, oh, I exhibit some of these diminishing behaviors. Always on tendency, and there's these different things that fixers and stuff like that. And you learn through team members, they're all different. They want to be coached and managed differently. I'm like, man, I just wish I would have read that book a year ago, not a year into my role. That would have been helpful. I could have been, learning a lot faster. Anyways, so right away I was like, that's the type of future I see unfolding, where you can build these personalized, as you're mentioning, awareness repositories of your own sort of fingerprint,
Right.
and then have this thing start to
Keep you accountable
keep
based
you
on what you
accountable.
want to be held accountable to.
Exactly. I want to have agency. I still want to have agency. And I called it like spying on myself
Right.
because we're not really self-aware a lot of the time. So I was looking for a way to go, is there a way that I could
So with what I'm building, you'll be able to build
Okay.
that
Well, we're going to connect on this
in
then.
like a sentence. Yeah.
All right, cool. Because I still want to build that thing. I just haven't been able to. I've got one other project I'm heads down on. So, okay, cool. I'm going to wind down here, and then I'll just share. I'll share your FXN page and your Twitter profile in the comments. Is there anything else you want to leave people with?
No, thanks for the opportunity to
Yeah.
chat, man.
All
Good to
right.
catch up.
All right. Cool. It was so awesome, Anthony. And I'll keep you informed on the next events and get you looped into those. And then we're going to connect online, offline about your other thing where I might be able to plug in my app in the future.
Sounds good. All right, talk
Awesome.
later, man. Bye.
Cheers, man. Bye.